Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are the Argonne National Laboratory team, and our names are Angela, Sia, Uday, and Anna. As a part of our team, we also have our external mentor, Matthew Deering, the technical lead for the AI for Operations initiative at Argonne, our internal mentor, Bill Troke, a preceptor in data science at the University of Chicago, and our TA, Cassie Tong, a first-year master's student in data science. So our industry partner, the Argonne National Laboratory, is a science and engineering research center that is working to answer the biggest questions facing humanity. And so this is a federally funded laboratory that needs to maintain privacy and confidentiality with its research. With the rise of generative AI and large language models like ChatGPT, Argonne is trying to incorporate an LLM for their own research purposes called Argo. Argo is trained to answer Argonne-specific questions through the retrieval of specific contextually relevant information. As I mentioned before, since Argonne is an organization that must ensure confidentiality of important documents, it is important that Argo is able to generate relevant responses while preventing the information from documents from being leaked. In order to do this, Argo currently uses a retrieval augmented generation system to generate responses. Sia will talk a little bit more about what that is and what we plan to add.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. RAG is an approach combining document retrieval-based methods and generative models to enhance the quality, accuracy, and relevance of generated content. It has a couple key features, including content access, so it's able to integrate Argonne internal document data to improve responses, and it's also very explainable and scalable, so it's able to trace responses back to the source data as well as handle large-scale data repositories. To go a little bit more into how the RAG pipeline works specifically in Argo, the first step was uploading the Argonne internal documents, breaking them down into chunks, and storing them in a vector database. Once the user puts in a query, like when is the SSR report due, the RAG pipeline retrieves the top relevant chunks that would answer the query, which is then processed into an LLM to generate a response. Currently, Argo's RAG system may provide incomplete or irrelevant information following a user query, and this is where the need for RAG agents comes in. RAG agents are autonomous AI systems that can essentially combine the power of large language models with external information to generate accurate and context-aware responses. It has a couple key benefits, most notably that it's more efficient, more scalable, and more adaptable than a RAG system that does not have an agent. Our task this quarter was incorporating a RAG agent into Argo. And to do this, we needed to ensure that the retrieved information aligned with the generated responses, and additionally, that it actually optimizes the search by generating better responses. So to do this, we were looking to use modular reasoning, knowledge, and language, or MRKL-based infrastructure to design our agent. And Anna's going to go a little bit more into what that is.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about MRKL and its implementation and how we used it. So a bit of an overview. MRKL is an architecture. It's a way of building an agent that allows the combination of the LLM with external knowledges for better responses, as Sia has mentioned. It's composed of three main parts. First, the LLM itself, which is the response generator. The second part, it's the external expert tools, or the APIs. These expert tools contain pockets of knowledge within certain regions. So say like a calculator, which contains like calculating knowledge, or like a weather API, which contains weather knowledge, and a router. The router is sort of like the brains of the operation, where it's directing the information access to the external tools and leading that information, feeding it into the LLM. Let's go through a little bit of an example to understand how this works better. So if we have a walkthrough of MRKL here, the user pushes the user query into the generative AI. Let's say a user query of what is the current temperature in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and how does it compare to the historical average for this time of year? This is a complex query that needs several types of information and several different parts to get it answered and resolved. So this query goes into the MRKL router. The router, as the brains of the information, calls upon different expert modules with the information needed to respond. For say, it first calls upon the calendar API model to indicate what date is today. Then it uses that data to go into the weather API model, inputting the data saying like, okay, for this date, what is the temperature in Winnipeg, Manitoba? The weather API has that information and feeds it back to the router. It can also take the information gathered and go again into the weather API and say, given the date of today, say like July 1st, what has been this temperature for this day for every single, like for the past 10 years? It can take that data, then use a calculator API to calculate the average temperature for the date and time of year. And all this information is fed back into the MRKL router, which combines it and feeds it into the large language model for the response generation. And this is exactly the type of logic we use to set up our MRKL agent. So for our agent, for internal Argonne purposes, when a user query first comes into the system, the first thing that the agent does is a document search within the internal Argonne database. This is because it's looking to see whether the information needed to respond to the query is contained within the internal documents. If that information is found, a response is generated. If the information is not found, then a web search or public information search is done on the information. If that information can be found with public access, then a response is generated. But if it can't be found, the agent also recognizes that the information is either not public or not contained within Argonne documents. To your right, you can see an example of this. If we ask the agent, where is UChicago, or where the University of Chicago is located, first it's going to do a document search. This is not the type of information that can be found within the internal Argonne documents. So then it'll proceed to do a web search, and this is public information. So given that the information can be found within a search tool, the agent will generate a response with something similar like UChicago is located in Chicago, Illinois, or the University of Chicago is located in Chicago. And Uday will go a little bit more about how we implemented this with our agent.
Yeah, so after researching and finalizing on the MRKL infrastructure for our agent, we then proceeded to design the MRKL agent within the LangChain that can address user queries by either searching for information from documents in the vector database or performing a Google search by activating an external API like SERP API. In this example, we uploaded Argonne's prime contract to the vector database to test queries. So the first query we wanted to test with the database was, what day of the week was the SSR report due in the year 2024? We decided on this query because, one, it activates both of these tools, and two, it requires a synthesis and an analysis of when to use each tool. So going into the first step, when the user types in the query, the agent will recognize that this is a document-related question about the SSR report. So we'll first try to perform a document search on the query. The agent will then gather and analyze the data retrieved using the document search tool, and then recognize that the SSR report was due on October 30th, 2024, which is directly from the document. However, the agent recognizes that the second part of the query, which is the day of the week the SSR report was due, cannot be found directly in the document. So we'll then activate the Google search tool to retrieve the remaining information from the query. Once the agent does this, the agent will then synthesize and structure this data to form a clear and coherent response to the user query, as we can see here. So then moving on to the second query, when was Argonne founded? We picked this query as well because we recognize that this information was not even provided in the document at all. So we wanted to test whether the agent was able to recognize that right away. So firstly, the agent will recognize that the information is not related to the query or not related to the document. So it will then activate the Google search tool. Once the agent activates the Google search tool, the agent will gather and analyze the data retrieved using this tool. And then it will then transform the raw data into insights that really inform the final response for the user query. Finally, the agent will synthesize and structure the information to form a clear and coherent response to the query. So in terms of deliverables and next steps, our initial focus was really understanding how to integrate agents within Argonne's existing systems. After evaluating various options, we decided on the MRKL infrastructure for both its compatibility and flexibility, as Sia mentioned. Once the research phase was completed, we then transitioned to building the agent itself. This included setting up the MRKL infrastructure and integrating our work to align with Argo's existing response generation mechanisms. This integration was key to ensuring seamless functionality and alignment with Argonne's objectives. Now that the MRKL agent has been developed and is functional within LangChain, our focus is now on deeper integration within Argo. This ensures that the agent works effectively within Argo's ecosystem and validating compatibility with Argonne's databases to streamline operations. Our next step will solidify the foundational work that we completed this quarter and pave the way for a fully integrated solution within Argo. Thank you so much.